thing we'd like you to do is get out your notebook and a pen. My name's Annie Schellenberg.
Penny Wanger, Durango.
And the first thing we want you to do is make a list. Think of 1 to 3 people who never listen to you. Or who you wish would listen to you better.
Do you have 3 children?
Yeah, they do. Great. Has everybody got 3?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now, write down 3 people who listen to you really well. You feel really heard by them.
That do listen to you really well?
That do listen to you
Okay.
really well.
You may not have 3. You may have 1 or 2 that you feel like really listen when you're speaking.
This is hard.
And notice that.
Uh-huh.
Just notice that.
What
So
if you can't, the second list can't come up
That's
with it?
okay. Yes.
Oh, my dog.
You can look at your dog. You can look at, yeah. I mean, that's interesting, right? That's also very revealing. But just, yeah, think of, and it might not be currently. This might be in your past. You know, when you went through a situation and somebody really heard you. It doesn't have to be right now. But maybe as a child even, you remember somebody really listening to you and what that meant to you. Has everybody got somebody? Yeah? Okay. Do the next.
Great, sure. All right, now look at the names of the people who don't listen to you very well. And how do you know that? How do you know they're not listening? What do they do?
Just write that down. Just write down a few emotions that come up for you when you are not heard. And then also write down the emotions that are present for you when you are heard. How do you feel? Let's hear from some people. How do you feel when you're not heard?
Rejected.
Rejected?
Frustrated.
Frustrated. Yeah.
Disconnected.
Disconnected. That's great, yeah.
Sad.
Yeah, yeah.
Energy is drained.
It's exhausting. Just need to talk and not be heard, yeah. Great. Yeah. And then how do you feel when you are heard?
Worth.
Love.
Oh, loved, you feel worthy, loved,
Empowered.
empowered, also connected, right? There's this disconnect and then there's this connect.
Like you matter to
Respected.
that person.
Yes, yes. And how does that make you feel? To matter, to be mattered.
To be affirmed in who you are.
Yeah.
Gives you more confidence.
Yeah.
When people, you feel people are listening.
Connected. Connection.
That's great. Let's switch it around. Right now you're on the receiving end.
Yeah.
So it's not you doing the talking. You're actually, you are doing the talking. You're the one who is being listened to. So how do you feel when somebody really listens to you?
When self-esteem, you know, obviously it's
Exactly.
a much better balance.
Yeah, you feel valued, don't you?
Yeah, you just feel good about yourself.
You do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is really important, right? Because when we're on the receiving end of being listened or not listened, we're very present to the impact, aren't we? So the mastery of active listening is actually knowing the gift that we can give to another by actively listening to them, right? So the second part that Penny was saying, make a note of this one too. Again, look at these people and look at how you know. This is more practical. This is much more practical. How do you know when somebody is not listening to you? You may need to close your eyes, just remember that conversation. How do you know when someone's not listening to you? It might be what they're doing. It might be what they're not doing. But make a note. Can you just make a note of what that evidence is that you're aware of? Even on the phone, we know when someone's not listening to us. Don't you?
Yeah.
How do we know that?
responding.
Yeah, they're not responding.
Or they start talking before you're finished saying what you're saying. And you go, really? I'm not finished yet.
Interrupting. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Or if they go,
Yeah,
There are clues. Okay, so write all these down
You
because
hear their
we've
fingers typing.
You can hear the keyboard,
You
yes.
see them on Facebook responding to something.
Yeah, you get an email from them while they're talking. Right, exactly. That's happening. Right? So just make a note of. So it's not just how you feel, but we actually know from a practical place when somebody's not listening. Get super clear on this. What are the signs? Because if you've noticed around the room, we all have a different awareness of when someone's not listening to us, and that is a clue, a huge clue to what we're doing around our own listening. So pay attention to how you notice when someone's not listening to you. Okay? So also write down how you know somebody is listening to you. Take a look at those people. How do you know they're listening to you? And there are certain things that they're doing or certain ways that they are being that also are evidence for us to know that they are listening to us. What is that? It's not just about how we feel. Something's going on over there with them that we know, we can sense that they're listening to us. What is that?
Their expression.
Great, that's one great example. Their expression, so their verbal, their body language,
Posture.
their posture.
Eye contact.
Exactly, so the body language, eye contact is huge.
They take what you're saying and then they have something to say about that and reiterate it back to you with their own feelings.
Or they ask a question.
Yes.
Conversation.
Yes, great, they ask questions. They're listening to us.
But,
Very important, right? When somebody's listening to you and there's the eye contact, there's silence, right? There's a presence of listening into which you're speaking, isn't there? Like you feel like this, the listening, the container of listening is there, and that includes silence. Yeah? Have you everybody experienced that? You feel like you can just talk, you're not going to be interrupted, and you can speak into this profound awareness of this listening that's there, this silence that's there. Yeah?
So it's interesting too, because if you rearrange the letters of listen, it spells silent.
That is,
It's a clue.
And then you rearrange them again, and it spells enlist. And this is what we want to do, to engage emotionally, to enlist. Because in our business, it's all about the quality of the relationships.
So let's just stay with now the blocks. Let's just take a look. So we've covered some, but let's take a look at what gets in the way of our ability to listen. And we're going to uncover this for each of us. We're going to do an exercise to uncover this. But let's just take a look at, just brainstorm a little bit on the board, more about, you said, interrupting. People interrupt you. This is how you know they're not listening to you. So shall we write some of these things down? What else?
Change subject. Like you're on the road of speaking about something and they just like, oh, and by the way,
Digress.
Yes, they digress. And often that's about them. Yeah, so what's that? How would we say that?
they have something more important than what you're saying.
Distracted.
Yeah, it's about them. They're distracted.
Distracted.
Great.
Rude.
What's that? They're rude.
Keep coming back to issues of their own rather than distracting.
Yes, this is huge.
So did somebody say they interrupt with a story about themselves, so they're turning it back to themselves? Yeah. So we call that me.
How about when they really didn't have the time to talk to you, but they picked up the, I guess that would be distracted. You know what I'm saying? They were trying to get off the phone right away.
They're multitasking. You were saying that earlier. They could be emailing, they could be doing something else. They're multitasking. Who does that when you're on the phone with somebody and you're doing other things? See, this is the key. What you notice other people do is what we do.
Right.
It has to be alive in us for us to recognize it as somebody else. Ouch! What about when you know that they're thinking about what they want to say?
Yes.
You know, they're just like, they can't wait until you start. Yes, exactly. They can't wait until you start speaking because they just want to get in there.
There's a great quote that I love, and it's, listening is not waiting for your turn to talk.
That's really good.
That's good.
Which happens when you're present, but what happens a lot is, you know, they're talking, but you're actually rehearsing your response because you want to sound good. And so it's a very natural thing that we do as they're talking.
Especially when we're prospecting, we're talking to somebody about body balance, we want to get it right. So there's a lot of that, like, what do I say next? Or if I say this next, or I'm going to give you a brochure. Like, you know, there's just this whole thing going on, right? And we're actually, their mouth's moving, but we're not hearing anything that they're saying.
You know, they say one of our greatest human needs is to feel important. And so sometimes we do that in our communication instead of focusing on making that person we're listening to feel important.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to feel heard, or what we have to say is very important. And it is. But when you're in the role of listening and, you know, being present with them is not the time to be saying what you need to say or turning the story back to yourself. And we do this in our business. You know, we'll find in conversations and watch this with people that you're talking to. If they're telling you about how their father had a heart attack, you know, you want to jump in and say, my father had a heart attack and a stroke. You know, I mean,
Americans are one-uppers, and they're never happy with what they actually have. It's really interesting.
That's a great one, one-upping.
Yeah.
Also, just judging in general, like so you know when you've said something to somebody and you can tell even before they open their mouth whether they agree or not agree with you. And they're going to tell you that, right? So when we don't agree with somebody, we want to make sure that they know that. And when we do agree with somebody, and then that can lead to interrupting, but there's that, because we make a decision, we judge in our mind, it's just a natural thing. It's not, I don't mean judge as in a bad thing, but we just make up our mind about them. We decide something about everything that's said to us. We cognize, they've studied this, we cognize meaning, you know, it comes in through our senses, and then we recognize and recognize from our past, right? It's all from our past. Oh yeah, that happened, blah, blah, blah. And then our response is there, and it's like, it's automatic, like we want to get it out, we want to verbalize it. So there's this decision that we've made, and then we want to communicate that. We can't like hold it in and let it go. We actually, there's this impulse. It's impulsive, isn't it, that we've got to get it out and tell them. Whether it comes out as one-upping or whether it comes out as, that happened to me too, last year we were in, right? And it just comes out before you even know it. It's coming out. And it's like, zip, you know, how do I zip it and just hear like, wow, that happened to your father. Your father had a stroke. Wow, instead of me saying, oh, that happened to my father, what if I just didn't share that and just was with them and said, wow, how was that for you? You know, we think we have to share what's going on here. We don't. People aren't actually interested in what's going on here. Nobody's listening, right? Nobody wants to know. They just want to be heard. People want to be heard. So what if we can offer that? It's profound. And people, if you do this, you can practice this on the way home. If you're on a plane or something, and they did some social research on this, this man just kept asking questions to the person that didn't tell him anything about him. Just asked questions to the man that was sitting next to him. And after they got off the plane, this person who was listened to was asked, and he said, that was the most interesting person I've ever met. Didn't know a thing about him, but he had been profoundly heard. He'd shared his life and all of those things. Isn't that interesting? So we don't really need to know. I have sat in silence for 10 days and longer with people, in silence, constantly 24 hours a day. And I know them intimately by the end of those 10 days. Intimately. And they haven't opened their mouth. I've not opened mine. We know each other. It's interesting.
Like a lady like that.
Okay. And you know, sometimes our not listening is actually coming, I think, from a good place. Like, have you ever been with somebody and maybe they speak slowly, and so you finish their sentence? You know, we think we're helping them by, you know, or sometimes I think, oh, I know this person so well, I can finish their sentence. And, but really, when we do that, we might miss a nugget, or we might miss something, you know, we're actually cutting them off. But sometimes it's coming from our desire to be connected or to be close to somebody.
So this is something to take home and read later.
What is it?
And use this. Use this to...
It's a list?
Yeah, you want it.
Okay, so now we're going to do an exercise, and you will need a partner. So if you're here with a partner, choose another partner. Choose somebody that you don't know. Very good.
Yeah.
And then you're going to, hold on a sec, you're going to turn your chairs.
I don't have one.
Okay.
Janet.
So much to, so
Janet?
turn your chairs so you face each other.
Can you have her?
Does anybody need a partner? Do you two, are you two?
Yeah. You know, I would suggest you sit knee to knee.
So one of you is A, and one of you is B. And the A's, I want you to think of a challenge that you currently have. Let's have it be a challenge. Think of a challenge. So who's A and who's B? That's not the challenge. Okay. So the A, think of a challenge that you currently have in your life force business. A challenge that you're having. And this is going to be a super quick exercise for a couple of minutes. And so the A's are going to speak. And they're the ones who are going to share what that challenge is. Now the B's, you are going to listen. You are not going to speak. You are going to practice active listening. You're just going to listen. Just practice listening. Okay? Everybody got a subject, topic? Okay, and go. And I want you to just journal. I want you to write down what your experience was from this. So for the people who spoke, how was it for you to just be heard? How did that feel for you? Write that down. And then for the people who were just listening, what was your experience? What did you notice about yourself? Did you notice that you wanted to interrupt? Was it hard for you to not say something or not? Yes, good. So write down what came up for you. Maybe for some of you it was a relief. Was it a relief for you to just to be able to just listen and not have to respond? But just write down what that experience was for you. We do need another being, because there's something that is co-created. Something happens in the space of listening. If we allow it, right? That's if we allow it. So when we don't allow it, if you jump in, oh, here's what you need to do. I can help you with that. And that's the masculine side. There's the feminine and the masculine side of listening. The masculine side is to fix. And I know this with my honey. He just wants to come in. Sometimes I do just want to talk, right? The feminines, the women often would just want to process. That's the way of processing. They're not actually looking for a solution. But the masculine, and we all have that within ourselves. Me as a coach, the masculine will come in and it'll want to fix the problem, want to offer a solution.
That's the way it's going to be.
So this is great, right? You can actually practice just letting go at that moment where it comes out. And sometimes you'll interrupt and you'll be like, oh, sorry, continue, please continue. And that's what I tend to do now. It's like I've now learned to at least stop myself when it happens. Because there's a physical response when you interrupt somebody. And notice how it feels, though, to do that. When you do interrupt somebody, it doesn't feel good, actually, does it? There's something that happens inside of us. It doesn't feel good because it's our ego. We brought our ego, this me, into the picture. Again, I can solve your problem, I'm better than you, But when we can just allow the conversation to unfold and it's really the creative force. There's a creative presence that unfolds, just as you recognized. You came to your own solution, you figured it out yourself. Yeah. That can happen if we allow it. That's the opportunity right to that. Who else? What came up? What was hard for you as you...
Well, I noticed, because I
I was the listener and instructed not to say anything back, that he talked, and then there was this pause. And usually I would fill that pause with talking. But what I noticed is that he then started talking further about something else that gave me more information about where he was and what was really troubling him. It was like he went deeper.
That's it.
And that was really great.
Yeah. Thank you. So, and that's the silence. Often when there's silence in a conversation, we think we suddenly feel uncomfortable, right? But that sensation, again, it's a sensation that we have within ourselves, is actually a sign. It's a moment where we can acknowledge the unfolding of something other than ourselves. So being with the discomfort, that's what meditation is all about as well, is being with the discomfort. You want to jump off the mat, you want to, it's just being with that. But so being with the silence and actually allowing the silence to do the listening. That's a bit esoteric, but allow the silence to unfold. And it did. The silence unfolded for you right there in that space. That's great. Was there anybody in the room who it was a relief to just listen? Yeah. Because we spend a lot of our time thinking we've got to solve or thinking it takes a lot of energy. And sometimes just to actually really listen to somebody, it's an enjoyable thing to do. To be quieter, isn't it? Great. Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes is, "Silence is the art of God."
It is. It is. Exactly.
I found that when I was listening, that I wanted to interject, but it came to the point where there was nothing more to talk about, and I know that in a conversation there's a lot of back and forth usually, and there's that support there, and when there isn't that support, sometimes the conversation can be dropped as well, so it's interesting to see the opposite side of the spectrum.
Yeah, it was done, it was complete. How was it for you when you could just talk? How was that experience?
It's a gift.
And in a lot of relationship workshops, they practice this as well. To give yourself on a daily basis, as a couple, an opportunity, like a 10-minute window, where your partner is just going to listen. You actually practice this exercise. You could do this every day for something that's coming up for you, and you just want to, for both of you, you just want to talk and be heard. Great, okay.
This is so profound, though, in our business, because as you develop teams of people and you develop skills as a coach, I even learned in this situation of listening because I am so used to coaching people that I found myself wanting to give advice and respond. And it really is beautiful to listen to how people will come up with their own solutions when you don't jump in to fix it. In our business, that's so important because our goal is to empower people. And so if we're always the coach and always fixing it for them, then they don't get to develop that own empowerment and leadership themselves. And there is, of course, a time where we benefit from coaching, but letting them completely go through their process of what they need to say. It's profound.
Shall we, moving on, we've just got a cut. We also want to get another exercise in before we wrap up. So.
Okay, so just curious, how many people had a course on listening in high school? High school, that is awesome. In college? How many people learned how to listen from their family? If you did, you are so fortunate because, as you can see, most of us don't get that ability to listen. We haven't really learned it. And so that's why it's so great if you can take these skills and really realize the importance of this gift that you're giving to other people. So there's a two-step formula for success that's very simple and a two-step formula for failure. So the two-step formula for failure is talk more, talk more. The two-step formula for success is ask, listen, ask, listen. Now, how many people in our business think that the more you talk, like when you're just starting out, you know, you're talking about things that are unfamiliar to you, and how many people think, when I learn to talk better or talk more or get better at talking about this, I'll be more successful? That's a pretty common misconception that we have, like, I'll be more successful when I can talk more. So, but I would say that you will be more successful when you really get curious about people. In order to really be in this space of really wanting to listening, we need to become very curious about the other person. And when somebody is really curious and they really want to hear you, how does that make you feel? In our business, it's really all about caring. So how do we show people that we care? And this skill of listening, I would say, is one of the simplest ways that we can do that. We have a saying in this business, and that is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I would say, in your relationships, in your prospecting, when you can really make somebody feel heard and listened to and create this space, they will feel that you care about them. And then whatever you offer them from that space of that connection, they will be more open to you once they really have felt that.
Do you have any books that you really recommend on listening?
I have a great CD series, and it's called Listening for Success. If you listen to, and I'm a great one for always having CDs in my car, and when you listen to most CD series from network marketers, there's always a section in there on listening. One mouth and 2 ears.
Have to listen twice as much as we speak. Okay. Can you hold it?
Okay. So here's a quote from an author, Brenda Euland. And I just love this because it really talks about what we're talking about, allowing people the space to tap into what comes up in this when we're silent and just provide the space. So it says, listening is a magnificent and strange thing, a creative force. When we are listened to, it creates us. It makes us unfold and expand. Ideas begin to grow within us and come to life. When we listen to people, there is an alternating current, and this recharges us so that we can never get tired of each other. It is this little creative fountain inside us that begins to spring and cast up new thoughts and unexpected laughter and wisdom.
So we're going to practice that space. Allow yourself to experience the space into which you are created by your partner's listening. So get together with your partner again. And what we want you to do, and it's already been mentioned, is to listen with your eyes. It's sweet that you came to that yourself. To listen with your eyes. We want you to face your partner. Be relaxed. Put down your notepad and pen. This is a being with exercise. There is nothing to do but to be fully present with another human being. We don't often have this opportunity. Can you come back in 5 minutes or 2 minutes even? We're just practicing an exercise. Thanks, Eric. So what we want you to do is just, as I said, to gaze into the eyes of your partner. We won't do this for very long. And what you'll be present to is that creative energy, that creative container that holds all of us. Call it God, call it source. And you can allow that to hold you. So just take a moment and be fully present. Listen with your being. Here's another beautiful quote that Penny found. Hearing is with your ears, but listening is with your mind, heart, and spirit. Hearing is physical, but listening is mental and emotional. Hearing is easy, but listening takes effort. Hearing occurs naturally, but listening is a choice. And hearing uses one of your senses. Listening uses all your human capacity. So bringing it into silence, just what you experienced, was the full capacity, the full ability that you have to listen. It's extraordinary. It's much bigger than hearing. And it's much bigger than just this little being that we're in. We're doing when we're inviting, when we're following, we're caring for people, right? This is a caring business. We're in service to people. So the more that we can connect with them on a heart level and get out of our own head, the deeper we can provide for them.
Yeah, and one of the things, when they asked a gentleman who was deaf, what advice would you give to somebody about listening? Because he was deaf, and he said, listen with your eyes. So remember this experience of that deep connection you can have with somebody.